Okay, my spicy question. Would you rather your elbows be immobile or your knees be immobile? Like, which would you rather lose?
Elbows.
You'd rather just like walk around with stiff arms the rest of your life?
You can walk.
Yeah. Yeah, at least you can walk.
You can walk and run and
You can
stuff.
still walk. You just
Yeah.
want to do this like
Penguin.
penguin waddle. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
like it
just
will be easier to like get extenders for your arms that you can use to like get things done versus having like artificial legs and struggling with that.
yeah, I thought
Where did this question even come from?
so I was thinking about our table talk conversations, like the spicy questions that we usually start off with. And
What,
I
like
just
as a
thought,
family, you guys do that?
well, we don't, but I thought there's like a game called Table Talk or
Oh, okay.
Tabletop. I don't know. Anyways, I just thought this would be great to get like a pack for just to start the podcast off, because I feel like a lot of times you're like, oh, what's a great question to start with, and sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. So I thought, but there's actually an app
Yep. There you go.
called Would You Rather. That's where that one came from. But there's also table topics that you can do as well. And I did not purchase a pack, but you can see sample questions. And some of them are good, fun questions. And then some of them are like super deep that I was like, oh goodness, I'm not sure somebody tuning in for the podcast is ready for that.
I feel like we need a developer specific version of these
Oh,
for like
yeah.
icebreakers at conferences. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like what keyboard do you use?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use like a regular what is this? Like Magic Keyboard. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So I travel with that one. I love that one. And I love how tiny it is, but I've been typing on this. And what's funny, yours don't have, you changed yours.
I changed mine, but I used to have the black caps also in the center, but I changed it recently. I can't remember why. I don't know. I actually have a Magic Keyboard coming this weekend. I
Oh,
bought
really?
$1,000 worth of mice and keyboards to test out this weekend.
What?
Yeah, my mouse button kind of went out, like my main click button, and then it just made me like be like, I should consider going Apple trackpad and Apple Magic Keyboard.
Wow.
But it has to be black, and they don't sell the 10 keyless one in black. Sucks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they don't. Like Logitech got one with an AI button now, where you can like click the button to interact with their AI.
That's
What?
kind of cool. I pretty much use Raycast for any shortcoming in hardware at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
It's
have
good.
the trackpad.
Trackpad is
So
so good.
and I've tried to go over to a mouse before.
Oh, you're all trackpad all the time?
Yeah.
Ah,
Sorry,
I feel
I
like
just one
I
of my
get
kids
hand
wrote
cramps
a
with
note.
that.
I didn't know what it said. I have
At least you
one.
can charge it while using it. You can't charge
Yes.
the Magic Mouse while
Yeah.
using it.
So I did like the Magic Mouse. I do keep that. I have the Logitech MX mouse. And the reason I got this was because I was going to experiment with Blender, and you have to have 3 buttons to do Blender. So this scrolly wheel works as a button. But the thing that gets me is like anytime I'm editing video or doing design stuff, I like being able to do the gestures with the
Yes.
swiping and the pinching.
Yes.
So this mostly just stays in my drawer.
I feel like I'm too much of a gamer to ever go away from those really high DPI, really high polling rate mice. Like I tried the MX Master and it felt like I was moving my mouse through sand. It was just like so slow and like not responsive. So I've got like all these Logitech and Razer mice coming this weekend, so I can try that out. And I think I'll run the trackpad in addition to those.
I do like with the Magic Mouse the scrolling gesture that you get on top of the mouse versus the like
because you get the
scroller
smooth
button.
scroll instead of the jank scroll that you get with all the mice.
Yeah. Hey, Emilite, how's it going? Good to see you in the chat. We can get started if you guys are ready to go. Okay.
Heck yeah.
I can talk about gear.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up the notes real quick. And oh, sorry. I did this the other day. I should cue this beforehand. Okay, we'll make sure we have the music ready to go. All right. Okay. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. In today's episode, we have Verk, who is the creator of Adonis JS.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compressed.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi. I'm a full stack developer at Atlassian working on Confluence.
And today we have a fantastic sponsor in Work OS. So if you've ever had to configure your own authentication or authorization, Work OS will take care of all of that for you, whether you want to do a custom solution with your own design or you're looking for a hosted solution where you don't have to worry about configuring all the things yourself. So I've been very impressed with the solution that they provide, and we encourage you to check it out. You can go to workos.com or also take a look at authkit.com, where they provide a lot of the functionality and features that you need. So special thanks to WorkOS for sponsoring. In today's episode, we have Verk, who is the creator of Adonis JS. Welcome, Verk.
Hey, thank you so much. Great to be part of the show.
Awesome. So Adonis has been in a lot of the conversations that I've been in recently because we've been talking about full stack JavaScript and kind of this gap between Laravel and Rails and how does JavaScript fit into that. And Adonis kind of enters that equation because they've taken a completely different approach to the router and how they're solving a lot of the backend problems. So I'm super excited to dive into the conversation today and kind of talk about the choices that you've made in the framework.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll kick it off with like just my experience in Adonis, and then Amy, you can talk about if you have any experience in the framework. So over the past few days, like past week, I've been going through a lot of the like getting started stuff, reading the documentation, watching a bunch of Adacasts videos, which we should talk about that too. And I've been finding it pretty interesting to dive into like an MVC, model view controller thought process, because normally, you really don't think about it that way. A lot of the full stack React frameworks now are like very route focused, very URL focused, and then they're just like, do whatever you want on the back end. So it's been interesting to have so much structure around an application, and I've been finding it. I feel like for small apps, it's like a little like, wow, this is a lot of boilerplate. But for big apps, I feel like, man, people will know exactly where to go and find what they're looking for. Amy, do you have any experience with the framework yet?
Yeah, I've kind of been looking at things. I haven't tried to build an actual project. So I will say, like, in terms of a disclaimer, I feel like once I can really develop strong opinions about something, I have to build a project and go all in on it. But I think one of the things that I'm interested in is the fact that, like, looking at Laravel and a lot of these other frameworks, you have this like put, patch, delete, or get, all these pieces on the back end that you don't hear a lot in the JavaScript world. And that's a huge part of Adonis and how you've structured the controller level, the model level controller. So, I mean, maybe let's start there. Let's talk about kind of the MVC and how that middle model works. Verk, do you want to kind of dive in a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, like as you mentioned about Laravel, like Adonis got inspired by Laravel because I worked with Laravel in my like initial days of my career, and that was like back in 2012 or 13. It was like Laravel 3 at that point in time. Then I basically switched jobs. I got the opportunity to work with Node.js, and that time we did not have like all these meta frameworks. I think we did not even have like React and back in 2013. So the common approach was to like pull in Express and then start figuring out everything by yourself, like how you are going to interact with a database, how you are going to send emails, or how you are basically going to set up testing. So I was like kind of tired with making all those decisions myself. So I thought, okay, let's like try to build some sort of a boilerplate around all these like different libraries that I use. So I created that boilerplate, which like eventually turned into Adonis.js, and then like framework basically got evolved from there. So uh, given that like I have a lot of background doing the backend side of things, that is exactly what shows up in Adonis.js as well. So it like starts from the backend and then leave the front end on you. Whereas if you look at a lot of meta frameworks, they start from the front end and they leave the backend on you. So you pretty much have to figure out like what like where exactly you want to start. So let's say if you're going with Next, or if you're going with Remix, you will have React out of the box. You can use like some really cool component libraries like ShadCN and have a really nice UI. But once it comes to the business logic side of things, like how you're going to interact with the database, how you will authenticate users, how you will send emails, how you will queue jobs, or how you will basically write tests that deals with all these pieces, you have to figure that out by yourself. And ideally, I think like there will be I would say like some teaching within the community, people sharing like how to do that in Next or how to do that in Remix, but it's again going to be very fragmented, and the best practices like might change every year or like every couple of years.
Yeah, and that's something that has to like evolve organically when it's not given to you by the framework. I was kind of impressed that like as I was going through it, I was like, wow, this replaces a lot of tools. Like it replaces your router, so Express or Hano, they're gone. It gives you a templating engine, so you don't have to go pick Mustache or Nunjux or Pug or anything like that. It gives you an ORM, so like you don't have to decide between Prisma or Drizzle, and it gives you a test runner, so you don't have to think about Jest versus VTest or whatever.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I was curious, like, and I'm sure, okay, I'll love to hear from you. But I was curious, like, why not pick like what's most popular today? Whatever, Prisma, VTest, Hano, whatever, and put all this stuff together and do that. Why build your own versions of those packages? So Edge, which is the templating engine. What was Vine? Vine was something that I can't remember.
The validation library.
Validation library, yeah. And then Joppa, which is the test runner. So how come those are first-party packages rather than picking the most popular, third-party package and stitching them together?
Yeah, I think like there are a couple of reasons behind it. Some are technical, some is what's popular today doesn't stay popular in the JavaScript ecosystem for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we started, everyone was like, hey, why do you have to build Lucid, which is like our ORM? Why don't you use Sequelize? Then somewhere in 2018 or 19, everyone was like, hey, I want to use TypeORM. And now like nobody talks about TypeORM. Everyone needs like Prisma or they need Drizzle. So investing in these core pieces means like we can keep them maintained, we can keep them as we want, versus always picking like what's the coolest technology out there and then like always swapping the everything within the framework. For example, authentication relies heavily on the ORM, the way like we set up auth. So if you're going to change the ORM every 3 years, then you basically have to like swap the authentication layer as well. So this is like one reason, but in some other places, it's also about the philosophy behind the tools that we are creating. For example, Java, which is the test runner, it can only run within the Node.js environment. Like if you try to run it in the browser, you can't do that. But we are happy to put that restriction because our entire focus is on the backend side of things. We like are not trying to set up anything in the React and like have first party integration for it, then also have tests which are running in the browser environment. So when you pull in something like Jest or YTest, you are like paying this penalty of transpiling your source code even though you don't really have to do it in the Node.js ecosystem.
Yeah, sure.
And also, like, some of the plugins that we have set up around Java, they also focus on the backend side of things. So we have like some plugin to deal with the file system, like utilities where you can like create files, you can write assertions on top of files. We have plugins to interact, like basically make API calls and have some assertions built in within that plugin. So all these are like very focused on the backend side of things. And I'm not sure like if the other communities which are like more front end will focus on those things. Maybe like their focus will be on to have like some environment that can make you run Y-test and serverless as well.
Yeah. So I
So
guess
it's like
if I could summarize what I heard there, it was like the advantage of having first party packages for this is, number one, they maintain the ethos and the philosophy of the project. And number two, it's almost self-serving because you can kind of build in features for the platform into those packages. Are they ever intended to be used standalone, or is it always like, hey, this is for Adonis and it's going to work for Adonis and that's that?
Yeah, so like you can use most of them even outside of Adonis. So like Wine, Java, Edge, you can use all of them even outside of Adonis, like in a regular Node.js project. But the idea is always to like stick within the Node.js platform. So let's say if you want to make Wine do the validations within the browser, which is like very common with Zod, we don't do that, and we don't like change Wine to run within the browser and like have client-side validations going through it. So as long as you are like building a backend application that runs within the Node.js runtime, you can use Wine with any framework you like: Express, Fastify, Koa, whatever you like.
Okay, I was going to save this for later in the episode, but I feel like it keeps coming up, and so I want to dig into this a little bit. You've been saying a couple times that like Adonis is a back-end focused framework. Can you talk about, let's say, your recommendations for doing front end alongside of Adonis? I know Laravel has something like Inertia. Laravel also has what's the other one? The
Livewire.
Livewire.
Alpine.
So does Adonis have anything similar to that, or is it just like, hey, use it as a headless API or straight up server render your pages with templates?
Yeah, like I can talk about it from like how I see people doing it, and then I can also talk about how I do it usually.
And then
So
also add some color on if Adonis has any opinions, like coming from the framework point of view.
Yeah, sure. So usually like the very first thing that you will see us using a backend template engine. So Edge is like you have a template that you render on the backend, you get the HTML that you send to the browser. There is no reactivity or no interactivity beyond that. If you want to do it, maybe you can pull in like Alpine to show like toggle some drop downs or like show a model and do all that stuff. So that's like one way of rendering HTML and displaying it to the browser. We also have an inertia adapter that one of the core team member created, Julian. He uses inertia extensively at his job. So that's the reason he like created the inertia adapter, where again, like similar to Laravel, you choose your front end framework, be it React, Vue, Svelte, and then you use Adonis.js for the routing and for the data layer and all that stuff. And then you render your templates using inertia. Now, one benefit we get, which Laravel doesn't, is we can do server-side rendering of Vue or React using Vite, because Vite is like a package that you can import within Node.js runtime, and you can use their APIs to do server-side rendering right away. Whereas Laravel has to like set up some machinery. You have to run an Express server, which will do the server side rendering, give the response to Laravel, and then Laravel will like give the response to the browser. So we get that advantage. But apart from that, the story looks like the same. And I personally haven't used Inertia that much. Like Julian, he's the one who uses it. He's the one who built it. I always like build APIs because I'm working with teams who write front end as like a job. So they don't want, like a backend framework to render their front end templates. So there is like a separate team that will consume the backend API written in Adonis, and then they are like using React or Next.js in the front end and consuming that API.
Yeah, I think those
so
are probably the
that's
two most popular ways that we've heard. So inertia seems to be like the universal bridge between these backend frameworks and front end like view libraries. Or if you're not going that way, it does seem like just making a headless API with a really nice backend framework is also the way to go, because the idea is that that backend framework is going to do a whole lot more heavy lifting than just making a couple API endpoints for you.
So is Adonis like closer to maybe Nest JS? Because Nest provides a lot of the back end stuff, but it doesn't, it's like a front end agnostic. You could bring whatever Vue or Angular, React, whatever to the front.
Yeah. You can say like Adonis is like quite similar to Nest in that particular thing. But of course, like the authoring experience of both the frameworks is like quite different. So if you write a Nest app and if you write an Adonis app, your developer experience will be different. And maybe like depending upon what your taste is, you're going to like one over the other.
Where did you decide? Because one of the things that's really interesting to me is when a lot of frameworks make opinions about like where they're going to draw the line. So let me put this in a different context. Like Astro, when they first released, they're like, we're just content sites. We don't do applications. And then they've kind of moved in that direction, especially now that they have the Astro DB. But it's really interesting to me that they're like, this is the problem that we're going to solve. So I'm curious, like how you, I mean, I know you said you had more back end experience, but where you decided like, I'm going to draw the line and we're not even going to touch the front end. Like, how did you make those decisions? Or are you even thinking about maybe one day we will touch the more of the front end?
Yeah, I think like I am like way more opinionated in this in comparison to like the other core team members. Like for example, Julian has to like push really hard even for inertia, and I'm someone. So this is how like I look at the front end ecosystem. It's moving at a really fast pace. One second, I don't involve with it every single day to like stay up to date, to understand like, okay, what's the right way to do things or what's the wrong way to do things, or have any specific pain points in that side of things. So it naturally doesn't feel right for me to solve those problems because I don't like experience those problems at all. Whereas I write backend applications like every single day. I've been doing it for like so many years now. So I know the pain points, I know the problems I want to solve. And that's where like I draw lines. But again, I don't want like my opinions to, like stop people from doing things with Adonis.js. For example, when Julian wanted to build inertia and it felt really simple, it integrated very nicely with Adonis. We went ahead with it, released it as an official package, and now people are like using it. I would say I see a lot of people getting excited about inertia more than anything else in Adonis.js. So usually when people first discover, they see inertia and they're like, okay, there is inertia, I'm going to give it a try now.
Interesting.
So as I was picking up Adonis.js, I found that there's a ton of learning resources out there provided by this website called Adacast, which seemed to be almost a play on Laracast to, Laravel is to Laracast as Adonis is to Adacast. Can you talk about if y'all had any involvement in that, or do you like help produce the videos or anything like that?
No, we don't have any involvement. Tom, like he's the guy who set up Adacast. I think he started doing videos on YouTube first, but he had some website which was named something else, and maybe like he realized that all he is doing is like producing Adonis.js content. So it makes more sense to like rebrand everything and start doing just Adonis.js related content. And yeah, super nice guy. Have been using the framework for like a couple of years now, I would say. At least that's when I saw him like started creating videos. and he has like created almost more than 100 videos on the latest version. So
Yeah, this series I'm watching
that's
is 100,
incredible.
109 videos long,
Yeah,
all
that's
just
incredible.
completely free, like amazing stuff.
Yeah,
I think that education piece is huge. I mean, that was one of the things why I never felt like I could go deep on Rails was I was like, where do I go for this thing where it's like Lyricast, obviously, with this other piece, or in this case, we have a partner that's going to help support us. And I think if people don't know how to use your framework or your code base, then they won't. The
yeah,
documentation and the education has to be there.
yeah. I think it's same with Brad. Like he was like exploring Adonis JS. He's like, okay, this is all reference material. I need something more handheld
Mhm.
kind of a thing that teaches me like how to take my first steps.
Yeah.
So with like Edocast proves to be really helpful in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm still looking for that one resource that's like, here is the biggest bang for your buck in the shortest amount of time with Adonis JS. Because Atacast is great about giving you like a full view, deep diving into every different system. But I want to know, like, I'm still trying to find that video or that blog post that's like, here's everything Adonis can do, almost like a speed run of all the features. And next thing you know, you build like a little authenticated to do app in like 30 minutes or something. That's got to be out there somewhere.
Yeah. Seems like something DHH has on the Rails website, where he like builds a blog
Mm.
within 15 minutes,
Mm.
kind of not like really teaching you, but like showcasing what Rails can really do.
The speed run. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to ask. So, Emilite was asking, I've been wanting to get into Laravel, but I never used PHP. Can Adonis give me that same experience?
I would say like it like really depends what you exactly will be looking for. But what I can say is like Adonis got inspired by like Laravel in the initial days, and it still is it's still like it's in the realm of frameworks like Laravel, Rails, or Django. So if you're looking for a backend framework which can take care of like most of the things for you, be it authentication, authorization, sending emails, testing, what else we got, social authentication, then I think you can pretty much get up and running with Adonis JS in no time. So in that regards, yeah, it will like give you that experience. But I think like Laravel has a huge ecosystem, and that's something we are like missing right now.
I mean, I think most frameworks are missing that in a sense, but I know like with Redwood, we're even just asking the question, how much of this do we bite off? How much of this do JavaScript developers in particular want to do themselves? And how much of them are really looking for a solution that will do it for them? I'm not sure we necessarily have a good answer for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like for me, the very first thing is like, do I need it? Because like I heavily use Adonis JS every single day. So the very first thing is like, do I need it? Do I want to improve my experience while I'm writing code? If I need it, it's like going to be in the framework. But then there are some things which I don't need it, and they are like super complex to solve, and that's where I'll leave it on the community to basically build tooling around it. I know there's this one guy who is basically building kind of a tool that will like go through all of your controllers, and it will introspect what your controllers do under the hood using like code mods and parsing the AST, and it will give you an open API spec out of it. So you
Nice.
build like your standard Adonis JS application. It will figure some things out at the runtime, like how many routes within your application are registered, which controllers are handling those routes. Then I think it will like do the AST parsing to figure out, okay, what those controllers are going to return in different conditions, and it gives you like an open API spec out of it. So he's working on it. He showed like some glimpse of it, and it looks pretty cool. That's something I might never build, but people have like a use case for it. If they have their own, like if they want to like scratch their own itch, then yeah, why not?
It's like the coolest part of a community project is Like when you create something and then you see other people just latch on and it kind of gets a life of its own.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Go
those
ahead.
integrations, so there's the ACE command line that goes along with Adonis, which has like a ton of like little helpers and code generators and things like that. And one of the interesting commands that I was looking at was like the one that installed and configured kind of like add-ons and packages into Adonis. One of the questions I had about that was, does that only work for first-party packages, or is there like a specific list of packages that it does work with? Because I wasn't sure if I could just install anything and then run configure. It doesn't seem like that would be the case.
Yeah. So like you can like so basically node ace add when you like run that command. Very first, it's going to install the package using whatever package manager you have configured. And there are like ways to detect it. Like if you have a yarn.log file, then you're
Yeah.
using yarn. Yeah. And once we have done that, then we will like basically look at the entry point of the package and see if it has a configure method, which is like the way we configure Adonis.js packages. And then
Gotcha.
we execute that configure method and we pass it an ace command as an argument. And that ace command has like a lot of utilities to create config files, to add new entries to the .env file, or to, you know, like register some validations for environment variable, register middleware. So it has like these helpers, which works as code mods that you can run on the project and basically configure it. So as long as that method exists, you can like do it with any package. If that method doesn't exist, that command will like still install it. Let's say if you say node ace add Lodash, Lodash has like nothing to do with Adonis. So
Sure.
it will install Lodash and then it will
that's it.
say, okay, like we cannot configure it because there is no configure hook for Lodash.
So I'm curious to see like kind of how far Adonis and these packages go. So like for instance, if I wanted to like just kind of add auth or add a database, how easy is it? Is it as easy as running one command, or do you still kind of have to like set up your users table, install Postgres or SQLite locally? Like, can you walk through some of those common flows?
You mean like when you create a new project and you want to pull in the official ORM, like how easy all that setup is, or like if you want to swap the ORM with
Like
Drizzle or Prism?
let's imagine like I have a project and I'm just like rendering HTML pages, and now it's time that I want to introduce a database. Is that as simple as running one command, or is there more setup than that?
Yeah. So I can like walk you through the process. So let's say you're rendering HTML, you don't have Lucid install. You will run the command node ace add @Adonis.js/Lucid, which is like the package name. We will install Lucid. There will be a set of prompts that will tell you which database you want to use. SQLite, Postgre, MySQL. Let's say you select PostgreSQL, then we will like install the dependencies that you need for PostgreSQL. We'll set up the config. We will create. No, we don't create any sort of migrations. And now like Lucid is all good to go. You have to still open like your .env file and give the username of your PostgreSQL database to basically connect with it.
Does that mean it's up to the user then to install and run Postgres locally?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. By default, like we configure SQLite, so you have a very, like ready to go experience with Adonis. But yeah, if you use PostgreSQL every single day, you have it set up, then yeah, you can switch to
awesome.
to it.
Another question that we had come in was in Next.js, there's the concept of client-side components for dealing with interactivity. How does the backend frameworks deal with that? I will let you answer, but I think the answer there is that you still have to handle all of the interactivity on the front end. So this is kind of like if you listen to some of the stuff that people are talking about with React Server components, the React Server component will still render all that code on the back end, but then you have to have a client-side component to handle all the state, because the client-side JavaScript is the only thing that knows what the click state is, what the user behavior is, and what's happening within the browser. And so I think that's the same way it works with Adonis, because you are purely on the back end, you're on the server side, you still have to hand that off to the front end to be able to let the user interact and move things around and do all the JavaScripty stuff that we're probably used to.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're using Adonis, and if you're like using Edge, that's our template engine. It's all on the server. We don't generate any sort of client-side code. Like I think with Next, if you're using even server rendered components, like the new thing of React, they still like figure out which are the client components. They will like create those bundles for you and send it to the browser, and then like browser will basically handle the life cycle of those components from there on. Adonis doesn't do any that sort of things. You can think of it as like Rails ERB, where once you have rendered the template, it's like all static HTML, no front end. You pretty much have to figure out how you do the front end side of things. And that's where, like I see having like this mismatch, because a lot of people in the JavaScript community are starting from the front end first approach. So for them, having like React is a must. And now they are looking, okay, what what frameworks are there that will give me React plus Laravel or React plus Rails. Unfortunately, Adonis is not that answer that will give you like React plus backend side of things. Of course, you can do it with inertia, but the experience might be a lot different than what you will get with Next or with Remix even.
Personally, I love the fact that you're sending as little JavaScript to the browser as possible, because you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to SEO or unfurling, or people just speed and performance makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you're building a complex backend, it might be good to make it its own like web server
API.
and be like, this is my backend, and then you can go nuts with your front end elsewhere. It does seem like with React Server Components, the front end is finally reaching over the network to try to start solving some backend problems. But if you flip that on its head, I'm not actually sure that some of these backend frameworks are really kind of going all the way over to the other side yet, beyond adapters like inertia.
Yeah, or like using something like HTMX, which still like interacts with your backend using these endpoints, still gets the HTML from the backend, but like gives you this nicer API of swapping the HTML fragments without doing full page reloads. But again, I think that it depends, what exactly you're trying to do. If you want to build something like linear, I don't think any of these approaches is a good idea. It will be nice to have like a separate backend, separate front end, and you like build these two really great applications, because linear has like some really good UI, but they also have a really solid backend with a sync engine. So it makes sense to have like two separate projects.
So let's talk about like some of those advanced backend features that Adonis can help with. So there's the ORM with the database, which is awesome. Does it do any helping with like role-based authentication or cron jobs and queues or any of those like more advanced backend topics?
Yeah. So we have authorization using a package called Bouncer, which is also a first-party package. And Bouncer is like a bit low level than RBAC or like role-based access control.
Okay.
You can use Bouncer to build RBAC on top of it, but Bouncer like gives you this nice way to basically create policies, which are JavaScript classes, and then within those policies you will have access to the authenticated user, and then you can like pass in any argument you want when you call the methods on that policy. And then within the policy methods, you can write the logic on how you want to authorize a given action. For example, if you want to authorize whether someone can edit this post or not, you will have access to the authenticated user, and then you can pass in the post the user is viewing, and then you can check if like this user is the creator of the post, then you authorize the action, otherwise you don't do that. So you can have like that very granular control using it. But if you want, like something more high level where you don't want authorization based on per resource level, but it's more like, okay, we have guests, we have admins, we have moderators, and they all have like fixed roles, then you can pretty much like write one policy for that and then use it like across your entire application.
Yeah, that's awesome. As I was going through all the Adonis stuff, I was just thinking to myself, well, I already do this in the Remix backends with functions, but it's the Wild West, right? It's just like I have a utils folder that is insane. And Adonis really puts so much structure around a lot of this, where it's like, put your controllers here, put your policies here, put your services, which I've never. It was such like a click in my head, like to use the word service, like Adonis used the word service. Service
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, just like read your database almost. That's kind of what I interpreted a service as. So I was like, MVC in general was something I had to like get my head around as I was working with Adonis. What about
Yeah.
other stuff like crons or queues or anything? Stuff that like, front end people have to reach for services for a lot.
Yeah. So related to queues, we don't have a first party package yet, but we have like built this wrapper, which is again maintained by one of the core team members on top of BullMQ. And BullMQ is like, I think like a package that almost everyone in the Node ecosystem use. And what that wrapper basically does, it gives you a bunch of commands that you can use to start your queue workers. Then it gives you like a nice way to basically express your jobs as classes. So let's say if you want to send some sort of promotional emails, you can create a job class, and then you can like write all the logic, and then you can say, okay, queue this specific class for me, and then that wrapper will like basically handle everything for you. So we have this nice wrapper on top of BullMQ, but we are planning to build a first-party package which will like follow the rest of the philosophy of the framework, and it's going to have like multiple adapters. So there will be like a core queuing engine, and then you can pull in the adapter for BullMQ, you can pull in the adapter for SQS, or if you want, like if you have like a really simple setup and you want to use PostgreSQL to manage your queues, you can do that. So yeah, we're planning to build it, but right now all we have is like a wrapper on top of BullMQ.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's kind of like the driver approach, where it's like you abstract the API, and then you can plug in whatever kind of service backend methodology you want to do there.
Yes, exactly.
Another thing that I just kind of like was different working with Adonis was most everything was class based, and so I was like, man, I haven't written a JavaScript class in a very long time. What drove you to do that kind of object oriented architecture?
Yeah, so we like heavily rely on dependency injection, and the nicest way to get dependency injection work with an ISE container is that you have to use these TypeScript decorators. And right now you can only use decorators within a class, like be it on the class constructor, be it on the class method.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the primary factors for using like classes almost everywhere.
Yeah, and didn't decorators go through a proposal ages ago, and then it got pulled back, and now it's coming back again, I thought?
Yep. I think they are in stage 3 already, and TypeScript has implemented them.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the TypeScript original decorators are like called legacy decorator right now.
Yeah.
And the JavaScript one is like the like the main one is the proposal that they have implemented.
Cool. Yeah. So far, it's been really interesting and fun to pick up kind of a new backend framework and get myself thinking in that mode. And I'm excited to keep going in all those Adacast tutorials and dive deeper into the database aspect of it, the authorization and authentication piece of it too, because that's always a difficult thing to do for a little front ender like me.
I love it. Well, Brad, if you're good, we can move into the next segment of the show. This is our Picks and Plug section, where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we've worked on. So, do you have a pick and plug?
Sure. So pick can be something I recently bought is these like ear pads. They have like this cooling gel in them. So in India, it's like really hot right now. We have 43-degree temperature, 43 degrees Celsius.
That's crazy.
Celsius. And when you're like wearing these headphones, you're like sweating all the time. And I recently found these like cooling pads somewhere on Amazon, and they are really nice. You don't like feel any cooling sensation on your ear, but I don't sweat, so that kind of proves that they are working. So that can be the pick, and the plug can be again like all the open source things I'm doing, whether it's Adonis, Wine, Joppa. Yeah, like go ahead and give Adonis just a try and see if you like it or if like it fits your taste.
Very cool. Brad, are you ready or do you want me to go?
I am ready. Yeah. So
Okay.
for me, um, so like roller skating has been a big thing in our family lately. Had a lot of family
Okay.
birthdays there. Been going to the roller rink a lot because it's also very hot in Texas in the summertime. So it's just a cool place to go hang out. And for Father's Day, I decided to get myself a pair of rollerblades. And
Yes. Oh, those look cool.
they're so sick. And we took them to the roller skating rink, and I was like skating backwards around the whole thing, and it was awesome. So I've just been loving having skates again because I spent all of my childhood on these things.
That's awesome.
They're the Rollerblade Lightning 80 millimeter wheels.
Ooh, fancy.
I'll put a link. They're awesome. It's a really good kind of like all around skate if you want to wear it for the roller rink or outside in your neighborhood, anywhere.
So I go rollerblading every day because
Do
I
you
have
really?
rollerblades on my chair.
Oh, yeah. Rollerblade wheels. Heck yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Not really.
Game changer.
Yeah, not really on my feet. And then what do you want to plug?
I will plug, I guess, my YouTube channel.
Yes.
YouTube.com/Brad Garapi. Check me out there. I've been posting some remix videos. I'll probably throw a few up about Adonis as well as I'm learning
Cool.
it.
Yeah.
And then I've been doing a bunch of YouTube videos for Cloudinary lately, so you'll see my face on their Dev Hints channel. Been talking a lot about image optimizations and handling prefers reduced motion with Cloudinary's image CDN. It's all good stuff.
Sweet.
Cool.
What you got, Amy?
So, James actually sent this. Well, I think Jess sent it to me. So, James sent me a package of swag the other day from different conferences and things that had a bunch of Auth0 stuff in it that
Nice.
Jess, I'm sure, pulled together. So Jess is James's wife. She works at Auth0. She finds like the best swag stuff from like any company that I've seen. So, anyways, I got this. It's called the Rocket Book. And there's different sizes. So you can see this one has a little Auth0 logo on it. But what it is kind of interesting, is has about 15 sheets in it of paper. And what you do is you use a special pen that it came with. It's a Pilot pen, which I'm a huge fan of Pilot pens in general. But with this particular pen, you write on it and then you use the app on your phone to scan it in, and it goes to their app and it'll OCR it and everything like that. And when you're done, you get this little towel and you just wipe it all off and you can use the whole notebook over again. So
Awesome.
it's I've been eyeing a Remarkable too, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this does everything that I needed to. And in this case it was free, but anyways, I've really enjoyed writing in it, and the fact that I have all my notes on my phone instead of a bunch of notebooks that I have laying around my desk. So anyways, and it's nice and portable and thin because it only has 15 pages in it. So check that out. It is the Rocket Book. And the cool part is you can get, with Pilot pens, you can actually get different color pens and markers and things like that if that's your jam. So enjoyed that. And then I'm going to plug, there's so many things I could plug. I'm going to plug brokencomb.dev. So this is a newsletter that I send out, or should be sending out once a week, but check it out. So the idea behind it is, in dev, if you think about your career, your knowledge as a comb, so you're going wide on certain things, and then as you gain expertise and experience, you can go deep on other things. So just to bring it around to this conversation, Brad and I have more front end experience, so we're deep in those areas, and then with Verk talking about back end experience. Sorry, Brad, because I was just talking about James. So, but anyways, Verk, thanks for joining us on the show. It's a delight to hear about the things that you're doing with Adonis. We, like I said, have been looking at it with Redwood stuff, been a lot of the same conversations with this full stack JavaScript piece of it. And what does that look like? So it's exciting to hear from you and some of the decisions that you're making. I always enjoy talking to other core team leaders and maintainers to see how you're making your decisions and running your communities. So very cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Now, if you are listening on your podcatcher of choice, please leave a rating and review. That really does help the algorithm just highlight our podcast and help other users find the show. And so we can have fantastic guests like Verk and have wonderful sponsors like WorkOS. So again, thanks to WorkOS for sponsoring, and I'd encourage you to go check out their product. For now, that's all we got. Sweet. And thanks for the sign up for Broken Comb in the chat. Well, that's all I get. I'm going to go ahead and call it. I've got tons of work stuff going on right now. So, but thanks for everybody for hanging out in the chat, and we'll catch you next week.